Hello, hello. Hold on, guys. Let me see. All right. Is it working? Hi. Yeah, it's working. Great. Yeah, so apparently I set the date of the stream, I mean the hour of the stream in the morning instead of the evening. So I meant 5:30 p.m., not 5:30 a.m. But anyway, hopefully not everyone just woke up and logged in. No, it's probably not that interesting that you would wake up in the middle of the night. Well, actually, early morning. All right, so let me go from the first donations to the last. So I already have a few that people sent in advance. So let's listen to this first. Okay, so I'm pretty good. Thanks. Oh, it's you. Hey, Blue Mount Score. Yeah, I remember you. All right, so the first track is by Neverback Music. So let's see what's going on. Okay, so I think in this track, you are like over processing a lot of stuff. Like some of the EQs are just too much. Some of the panning is too much. Oh, is the audio cutting? Let me check. I hope it's not cutting off every few seconds. So I was saying, yeah, I think you need to be a bit more easy on the processing, and I will show you a few more examples. Okay, good. So, for example, your strings, just a simple example. The first thing I noticed was the air on the strings. First of all, there is like maybe it's the MP3 that's not the highest quality, but it sounds a bit nasty in the high end here. Like you can see the cutoff actually. It's probably a lower quality MP3 than it should. For some reason, it's cutting off here. But you probably boosted a bit too much air on the strings, and it sounds a little bit harsh and kind of unrealistically noisy. That's like the first thing I would notice. And then you definitely over EQ'd the brass. So the brass tone sounds a bit weird, so let's figure out what happened with that. Like, I think you cut way too sharp, maybe around here. Maybe you cut in the mids too sharp and too much, and it sounds a little bit not natural. So you need to just ease off the EQs. Maybe don't cut as sharp of a Q, something a bit wider. Like the low mids and lows, the sustained lows are kind of drowning everything, and the percussion is kind of not really poking through in the bass. In the bass, it's a bit flat because it's just very much like sub before. There's like when the percussion comes in, there's a bit more sub, but there's no like a real contrast because there is just too much constant sub. Constant sub. Same here on the hits and the percussion and the hi-hat, too much EQ. So you made your cymbals and your metal instruments a bit too harsh. You boosted too much high end. And the percussion here, you boosted around 4K or something. And it sounds a bit harsh. Around here. So again, just too much EQ. Too much sub on that downer here. It's too subby. The drum kit is not too bad, but maybe it's a bit too resonant here, so a bit too much again of this sub, which is a bit too distracting. And the toms also a bit too muddy. The toms. It's just it's just too much EQ, too much low boost here, so it's not really blending. This part sounds pretty nice. The strings EQ is quite. Yeah, so you just have too much constant sub from the tuba or whatever low sustain elements you have, and it's just eating all the headroom, so these drums are not really creating any contrast when they happen because it's already so much constant sub from the sustain elements. Also, the tone of the brass here is a bit closed feeling and a bit honky feeling. There is one brass instrument that's a bit too honky, and it's lacking some brightness. The brass kind of feels too mid-rangey and kind of held back. So you probably want to make the brass a bit more bright and shiny, but not the metal elements, just the brass. Yeah. I think maybe you're just overthinking EQ, and it happens. You might just be overthinking EQ and just doing too much where you don't need to sometimes, and you end up making the stuff sounding too affected. So that's what I would say about this track. So next track is from Nordic Done, a regular. Who doesn't know Nordic Done? Let's see. That's cool. Very, very nice. So, how do we enhance this? So the first thing is some hits don't really blend. So let's talk about this one. The high end is a bit too clicky and kind of takes you out of the space. So you probably want to roll off that a little bit. When it comes to all these kind of mid-rangey washy hits, like I get the style, the kind of the washed out reverb style, which is very nice, but we just have to tone that back slightly. Otherwise it kind of goes into the muddy realm. So just a couple dB. You don't want to kind of lose the mood of the track, but you kind of want to tone down the muddiness a bit. Boxiness, I would say. Same for this stuff. Yeah, just all this stuff is feeling a bit too washed out, but not too much, but slightly. Like, there's not that much bass impact in those hits, but I guess they're kind of filtered, so that's the style. I think it's fine to not have them too punchy. Maybe remove the click in that hit here. Definitely remove the clicks in these two hits. Just filter them or saturate the high end. Just do something so it's not clicky anymore. All of these. I think the ambient sound in the background, just like the washy hit, is a bit too muddy at the same spot. These big hits, the tone is not great. It's more a sample issue. It's just too it's not crunchy enough. It's just too boring of a hit. So, like the high end, I guess, is tight, but it's not the best thing you could use for a low main hit. you definitely want to use something a bit more crunchy with longer low end, like longer bass decay as well. It's just not the best sample. Or you could keep this if you want that character in the sound, but layer something more crunchy that has more oomph to it. But this is very like one-dimensional of a hit sample. It's not the best hit sample ever. So for all these Brahms, same, it's a little bit washy, but not too much. You kind of want to keep the reverb feel, but because you put so much reverb, it becomes a bit washy. So what you could do is cut a little bit in these Brahms. Crunchy would mean like a high end that's not like a pock, but a high end that's more like a, like, I don't know, any kind of big drum ensemble would feel more crunchy, I feel, than like an electronic kick. You just get more texture out of the high end. So yeah, so cut a little bit of washiness around 800 here and that Bram. And because it's so wet, I think you need to layer another Bram that has more grittiness to it. So right now this Bram is very smooth, but you probably want to add another layer of like a synth bass kind of Bram, which would have more grittiness to it under it, just so that the texture is a bit more aggressive. It doesn't have to be the main Bram, but I would layer something with a bit of gritty texture under it, while you cut the muddy one a tad, just to add more grittiness to the sound. You know what, this hit is already a bit more crunchy. But still, it's not the best sample. All these hits, they feel like very dark, like there is no, you know, brightness to the hits. It's like very hollow. I guess hollow sounding is a good word. But I'm trying to look for some. Oh yeah, this little transition here, this little synth transition. You could have a ping pong delay, make it go from left to right really quickly, so it's like not censored. All right. And these final hits, yeah, they're just a bit too clicky. Also the high end, it doesn't really blend with the reverb texture, because if you put a lot of reverb on stuff like that, you're kind of going to give the listener the feeling that everything is really far away. Like that's a big far away sounding track. So if you have a tight transient at the same time as something that's supposed to sound far away, it's very counterintuitive. It's too counterintuitive for the brain, because tight transients means something is close, whereas you have the rest of the sound design is very far away sounding. So you want to use different hits than these spiky ones, or just saturate the high end and cut the high end so it's not that clicky anymore. Same thing as the ones before. Yeah, all this tick tick, it's just not blending. Yeah, that's about it. Great track. Great potential for TV spots and stuff, where they would just cut like 5 seconds on this and you make like 25k for the 5 seconds and a couple drum samples. It's very easy to cut your track, which is great, like for TV spots and stuff. Yeah, that's very good. Okay, so the next track would be by Mathieu Deguay. Let's open it. Who doesn't want 25k? It might happen, you know, you just need a bit of luck. But these tracks are very good for TV spots. Yeah, so let's listen to this one. Oh, this outro is the best part. It's like really well done. Just listen to this outro, how well done it is. It's just really nice. All right, so let's go from the beginning. Nice black hole reverb. The piano is a bit too resonant in the lows. I cut that a bit. And that new sound, that new synth that's introduced is a bit too muddy, just like the previous track. Kind of this area here. I'm gonna tone that down a bit so it's not as muddy. Then maybe the piano on the higher notes here is also a tad too much. So you have an instrument that's non-stop resonating here for like a lot of the track, and I feel like this has to be like a bassline instrument or something. You need to figure out what it is and make sure it doesn't resonate as much because it masks lots of the music. I mean, we also hear it here. If you focus on it, you won't be able to unhear it. So try to find out where that comes from. So I feel like this hit could be more significant. It's a little bit too small. The synth lead is a bit too sizzly and just kind of doesn't blend with the mix because you have a bit too much high end. So what you can do is just filter it. Don't allow too much of the 1020K. I'll just put like a tape emulation on it with some settings that would roll off the high end naturally. Just have some kind of more filtering going on just to reduce the high end and make it blend more inside the mix, the synth lead, for the whole track, because it kind of pokes out and doesn't blend with the other elements. So on these big hits, you have the impact that's kind of ruined by a resonance, which has to be coming from some low bram or something. So you need to figure out where that's coming from. Because it's kind of like overshadowing the impact of the hits. And the hits might be lacking some sub impact as well. They're a little bit flat, not very punchy. So maybe try to boost some sub, or figure out if you don't have reverb in the bass, just try to make them tighter. And cut that resonance. See, it's like non-stop also during the... I think it's like the same sound maybe, because the one I was noticing before was higher. So it's like you got 2 octaves of resonances that are muddying the mix. Yeah, now it's the higher one in the second half of the climax. It's the higher one. And the brass is a little bit muddy overall, like a bit boxy. Around like 500. The percussion is not very defined. If you could get the individual kicks tighter. Now it feels a bit like constant rumble. So if you can try to kind of maybe use a different sample that's not so long in the sub, so that when you play that rhythm, the individual hits poke more as individual spikes of bass. The choir is a bit too much at 1K. The strings might be too quiet because I really can't hear that through all of this. But once you clean up the resonances, they might be more audible. So something to keep in mind. But right now the strings probably are a bit quiet. And this outro is perfect, nothing to change about it. Yeah. All right. Okay, so next one is from Vate. By the way, guys, if you want your track reviewed, feel free to send a €3 donation, link in the description below. And yeah, I will review your track. Don't forget to include the link in the donation. You're welcome, Mathieu. Okay, so this one is called Rainstorm and it's by Vate. Let's listen to it. Oh, this is a great, really original sounding epic piece. Very nice. So let's start from the beginning. Overall, you have too much stereo enhancing. So stereo enhancing is messing up some instruments differently. The strings, it's fine, but some of the hits, some of the piano, I feel like it's just way too wide. So you probably have at least 20% of stereo enhancing on the master, and you need to back that off. You probably have like 25, maybe 30, but that's too much. So you really need to ease the stereo enhancing so that you don't get such a weird stereo image. For some instruments it's fine, but some others you can hear it. So what is that instrument called? The mallet instrument. Oh my god, my memory. What is this instrument called? Marimba? Is it marimba? Vibraphone? Marimba? No, it's marimba. It's marimba. Yeah, vibraphone is a little bell. Yeah, okay, that's the one. You need to put it more in the back. Yeah, marimba is like I think it's like the wood pipes under the metal stuff. Or is it just wood stuff with wood pipes? Yeah, I'm a bit confused about. No, I think it's all wood. It's probably all wood. It would never sound this way otherwise. Yeah. Okay, so it sounds a bit close. So do you have more mic positions? See if you can have more mic positions just to put it more in the back, because it's not reverb really. Well, you could put depth with reverb, but ideally you just want more of a whole sound to get a bit more depth out of the sound. Oh, it's metal pipes. Yeah. That's it. Okay. Yeah, that's true. I know there is like a combination of metal and wood. It's marimba. So if you can't get more mic positions, just try to maybe use something like a slap delay. Just look up slap delay, see if you can put a subtle slap delay without kind of doubling the notes, because that would be bad if you double the notes. And on top of that, try to add more reverb just to get more depth, but ideally mic positions. So there is some kind of reverse kind of effect, I think, going on. And every time it ends, there is a little click. It's mostly audible here in the outro. Like little electronic clicks. Try to remove them. So I don't know why it's happening. Worst case scenario, just use a software to declick, like Isotope RX, or maybe some free software like maybe Audacity could declick. But if you can somehow make sure that the releases of these little things don't cut so abruptly that you get an electronic click, it would be great, because it's a bit too distracting. The violin also feels a bit too close mic'd, so if you can just get more decatory and room sound out of it, and more reverb, try mic positions first to fix that issue. A solo violin. The kind of distorted, washy, kind of distorted sound. Try to make it wider. Use a doubler maybe, or something, just to kind of make the effect really stereo. And just open up just focus on the glitchy sound, because of course that will destroy everything else, but just more of this kind of feel on the glitchy sound. As opposed to this. So it's like kind of really wide. The strings are a little bit too mushy, around like 400, 500. So cut like 3 dB there just to make the strings nicer. Yeah, this violin feels too. Or is it a viola? Could be both. Probably viola. It feels too mono. So for some reason it's mono. Try to get again with mic positions a more stereo sound and reverb because it doesn't blend with the rest of the orchestra. The percussion is a bit, it's nice, but like the low sub feels a bit like we can't really hear the texture from the drums. It's mostly just a low sub punch. Sylvester, so if you click the link in the description, you have an option to donate and you have an option to attach a message. So in that message box, you can put your link. Before you click the donate button, you have a message box where you can put stuff. So if you can try to maybe add another layer of percussion, so it's not so much of a sub bump because we don't really hear any texture of the drum, just kind of an isolated sub bump, which is a bit, you know, doesn't have much color to it. I think there is a constant sub instrument, which is a bit too strong. Or maybe it's the constant drum as well. Just a bit too much 40 Hz here. It's a bit too rumbly. The trombones are definitely too washy. Overall, the overall feeling of the climax is it's a little bit mid-washy. So you definitely want to cut the trombones here. Like a good 6 dB. At like 1K, 800. Just get less of that. But of course, you don't want to cut this on everything. Just try to get a bit less of a washed out feel in the mid-range by cutting some stuff. Yeah, the percussion might just be too EQ'd. Maybe you just boosted too much sub. So it feels like just a constant sub, and that's the same problem here in the build-up. So yeah, all a bit too mid-rangey, in the climax. And yeah, same things here. So yeah, a really cool track overall. I loved it. Very, very original. Okay. So next, I have a track by Simon Gross. Let's listen to this. This is nice. Oh, this is very cool. It's very cool. So most of the issues are just this composer is Simon Gross. Yeah, it's very nice track. Like I love the woodwind runs and stuff. So most of the issues are just that it's too raw sounding, and like it sounds like there is not enough EQ. But so the first issue is the violin. It's too panned. So by panning something this much, you just get it out of the orchestra basically, and out of the room. So it feels like it's in the next county. It doesn't feel like it's in the same room. So you wanna turn down the panning here, so it feels more part of the room. Especially because the other strings are not that much on the right, so having the violin way too much on the left is just unbalanced. Yeah, exactly. Out of the room. That's what's going on. Yeah, it's tricky to adjust panning because if you're just sitting on monitors and you go back, it sounds less panned, and then you go in, it sounds more panned. And then you wear a different pair of headphones, and like some headphones don't image well, so it feels narrow. Then you change headphones, and it's, you just need to know your monitoring, make sure you're in the same place, make sure your speakers are not in the corner or something, like this guy. Yeah, I have my setup in the corner, and I mean, no choice sometimes, that's why you use headphones. But you need to figure out that your setup is balanced and it's not giving you a false perception of panning, because maybe you're panning too much because you're trying to compensate for your room, and you don't want to be panning to compensate for your room. You want to be panning just to make sure that it's even from left to right. It's balanced from left to right. So so yeah, panning of this, and then just the EQ in general. The strings are a bit too muddy. So all the strings and the violins here are just too much at like, and like a few things you can do to make the violin really nice. So first of all, you make sure there's not too much 500. So right now there is a bit too much 500. So you cut a bit there, and then if you want a smoother tone, you cut around 2.5 to 3K. So this is what happens. This is the harshness you're gonna get rid of. And just compare, just focus on the violin, don't focus on the other stuff. So this is off. See how much more natural and less nasal the tone is because of this cut. And so we control the kind of weight of the violin with this. So if it's too present, we can cut here a bit. So it's a little bit less heavy on the ears. It's a little bit lighter and lusher. If you just cut here, it's just going to be still nasal. So ideally, you want to couple a cut here with a cut here. And that's just how most violins are, no matter what the library. To some degree, you can do some of this. I've noticed. So just a little trick for violins. And so that's for this violin. So more to the center and this kind of EQ. Also, it might just be too loud overall, but the EQ is gonna make it quiet as well. So also the bass is a bit weak here, so mostly the low mids and mids are overpowering. So you might wanna make sure your low strings are fatter than this if you want more low strings in this part. Like here, for example. So it's all mostly around the same area, mid-range. So the choir, again, here it's a bit... Just a few things you can do. Just kind of removing some of these loud 500 to 1K harmonics is gonna scoop the mix slightly. So when we talk about mid cuts, we talk about scooping, like scooping ice cream. But in that case, you scoop the frequencies and it just opens up the mix. Because now your ear is less focused on this one spot. So it's able to hear the other frequencies more evenly. So as you cut this spot, then the other stuff naturally is more revealed as a result. So that's how you achieve like tonal balance. So obviously you want to cut different things in different instruments. For the choir around 1K, the violin we showed before, etc., just to open up the sound by having a flatter frequency response. I mean, same issue on the choir here, doesn't really change. The piccolo might be slightly too harsh. You could cut it a bit around the frequency here. So your woodwind runs are nice here, like the little woodwind arpeggios, but a bit buried. So you could boost the air. The high frequencies on the woodwinds would be really nice, just to make them poke out of the mix a little bit. You can hear these little jumps. It's pretty hard to hear, but there is some woodwind arpeggios. And just having them poke out in a bit of an airy way would be very nice. Same thing here, mid-range kind of. Same things here. So yeah, it's very cool composition. Very cool composition. So you just open up the sound, get a flatter frequency response, EQ a bit more. This is very raw. It sounds very raw. It's very cool. Yeah. So let's see what's next. we got a track by hold on, let me try to say your name correctly. Steingrimmer Torrelson. I hope that was right. Nordic names are very hard to pronounce for me, some of them. So it's called Touch. Let's see. Just to continue on the headphones discussion, you need to watch out for the bass frequencies to be too loud, because the thing is, on headphones you don't notice them as much, so they can feel like your track can feel like it's bass shy, even though it's already too much bass. So you need to use tools like ozone tonal balance control, or also check on monitors. If you have a good pair of monitors, it's not that expensive. Like, you can get some pretty good monitors for like under 200, or it's good to invest in some monitors. I mean, if you're gonna mix on headphones, probably want some backup monitors just to double check bass and stuff like that. But yeah, just on headphones you need to be careful, because you can easily not feel the bass physically as much. So what's gonna happen is that you will overdo the bass. But other than that, headphones are great. And for anyone with a room that's not ideal and like no room treatment, I would recommend headphones over speakers. So yeah, close back can have some resonances. It's not great. Okay, so this track, these low booms here at the beginning are a tad bit too subby. I would just tame the sub slightly, because in comparison to the mid-range stuff, it's just a bit too much of a sub. Yeah. The strings are a little bit, the strings are a little bit too resonant in like the low mids. I would try to get a bit more air out of this. And cut a bit here. just to kind of clear up the low mids a bit in the strings and the piano potentially. Again, a bit too much sub. So here I think it's the timpani that's kind of causing problems, because it's just creating a constant resonance that's a bit too muddy and kind of muddying up this sequence around here. You wanna cut a bit here. You guys. So yeah, just by cutting the harmonic here, you will get just less, less distraction with that resonance here. So on the timpani. I need to cut the damn timp twice as more. Yeah, I mean, yeah, sometimes you need to cut the timpani a lot. That solo violin, it's a little bit, you can cut it a bit around like 2.5. Make it a little bit more light and less harsh, less kind of like that. And the piano is a little bit too resonant, like around 800 to 1K. If you can tame some of these notes here on the piano. The string stacks, the violin stacks sounds a bit too hyped in the high end and a bit too dry. So maybe a combination of more reverb and less high boost to put a bit more distance in the stacks and make them feel less close, have more depth because of that. These hits are fine, but like the high end is a little bit brittle. So maybe just filter some of this. Luke, yeah, I made Luke buy AG800s and he loves them. It's expensive, but it's like if you want to become a mixing engineer, it's just like any job, like a taxi person will need to buy a car for a taxi. So it's less expensive than a taxi car. But I would say if you really want to do this professionally, it's a good investment to do if you're able to afford it. So yeah, on this hit, just the tail is a little bit. So the constant brass is a little bit honky. Around like 600 here. So just kind of control these frequencies. The violin ensemble here is a little bit too forward, around 3K. So if you can get it more lush by cutting here, your violin would sound more pleasing to the ear. There is a bit of a constant sub bass that's a bit too heavy and just preventing the drums from really feeling impactful. So whatever constant sub bass you have, just cut like some of the 40 to 90 hertz just to kind of free up that sub-harmonic range for the drums to be more impactful and less drowned in that constant sub bass. These hits are a bit too loud. And a bit too bassy. It's just too much rumble going on in this part, too rumbly. even on headphones, you can feel the energy down there. But the drums, yeah, the drums could be a little bit, you know, the driving drums sound a bit dry. If you could add some reverb on the mid-range driving kind of drums here, like the dun 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 dun, just to give more depth to them, could be nice. Yeah, I guess that's about it. All right. So, next we have Jonathan Carrillo, who says, "Got nothing I can send the stream, but please accept this humble offering." Anyway, maybe next time. Oh, thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. All right, so then we got a track by Alonso Omeneta. Let's go. Oh, it's really short. Wait, no. Really? Is it supposed to begin like this? Hold on. I guess it is. I'm just confused because I just want to make sure it's 20 seconds. Is it just 20 seconds? I just want to make sure it didn't have an export error. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. 20 seconds is fine. There is a lot we can analyze in 20 seconds. You know, if all the elements are there, that's everything. Oops. Wait, it's really loud. I need to route this correctly. Oh, that's some pretty advanced stuff. Damn. Oh, okay. So some balance issues. There is some balance issues, some percussion issues. So let's start with the most simple thing, the most fundamental level, which would be volume. So let's figure out what is wrong with the volumes. So here I would say just the cymbals. They're a bit too sizzly and loud. So maybe you boosted too much high end in the cymbals, but if they're just naturally that sharp, it's a transient thing probably also. So you could just put a limiter to limit the cymbals so they're not as spiky. But try to see if you didn't just over EQ them first, and maybe do a combination of cutting more highs and limiter just to cut that peak. That's raw cymbals. Okay, just put a limiter on it. It should be like, you know, like a DSR. You can put a DSR on cymbals. It does a great job. Just let me put a DSR. Like, like multi-band DSR. So not just lowering the whole track, but a spectral DSR. And obviously it's just ruining the track, but that's the point. I mean, the point is not to ruin the track, but just target the cymbals. That's what I meant. So yeah, these cymbals, then so I feel like the cello here is going to be too loud. Also, maybe it's an EQ issue. It could be both, but there is a low resonance. That seems to be coming from the cello. and the brass is just too quiet. So the brass is supposed to be louder than the strings, like really loud. And it's kind of bright here, so it should be louder. Like this brass chord here is just way too quiet compared to what's before. Actually, the brass overall, you probably want to turn up the brass, just it's supposed to be louder. Yeah, all this brass here. Yeah, like quite a few dB. Like, yeah, strings are too loud compared to the brass. And then, yeah, the percussion is a bit loud here, but it's also an EQ issue. So it's like the percussion is a bit too muddy, but it's also loud. But you definitely want to clean up the low mids on that percussion. But it's probably too loud overall. Konstantin, yeah, you can send anything, even something raw, and I can give some pointers on it. But it's usually better to send something mixed because then it's more like easy to kind of tell the mistakes, and there is probably less of them compared to if it's just completely raw. And you know, if you add a certain type of reverb, it would kind of influence the EQ decisions. So it's not like my advice would 100% apply, maybe depending on the reverb you're going to be putting. And it's like I can't really go in depth with like one specific problem, but it could work too, actually. It could work too. And yeah, so the panning also, your strings here, the violins feel a bit more centered, a bit too centered. Like all your instruments feel kind of centered, so if you could just spread all the instruments nicely with balance panning or precedence if you have this plugin, just to get a realistic kind of even left-right image. Don't go too far, because if you go too far, it will get out of the room. Depending on the panning plugin you use or your DAW and your panning law and all this stuff, it's going to be different. So don't use numbers. It could be 10%, it could be 30%. It depends on the plugin and what you're using to pan. But really, you want to reference, if you want to reference something in a bit of the same style, listen to John Powell, How to Train Your Dragon OST. Yeah, this library must be a bit too narrow. So just listen to How to Train Your Dragon and listen to how the stuff is panned and like really focus on just the panning. And keep in mind that How to Train Your Dragon is very panned. It's very panned. So you can go a bit less than this movie. But that's kind of a good example on what is semi-extreme panning for this type of track. Yeah, cool. Yeah. I mean, I can hear the style. It's... yeah. And the cymbals, again, are still a bit loud here, but it's a very cool track. All right. Okay, then we got a track by Sylvester P, which is called The Vampire Lament. Ooh. It's gonna be a dark track, I hope. A dark, scary track. Or maybe a sad track, who knows? Oh yeah, it's sad. It's very sad, for sure. Yeah, no worries. Glad the feedback helps. Yeah, I mean, who isn't inspired by John Powell? It's just such great stuff. Okay, let's listen to this. I'm excited because there is a vocalist. This is cool. I love having different stuff to check out. This is nice. So yeah, several EQ issues, reverb issues, as Patrick mentioned in the comments. So first of all, the piano. It's a little bit too muddy around here. You can just cut the piano 3 dB here. Then the voice. So the voice is a bit weird because you have a sizzle in the treble going on. And at the same time, the low mids are also muddy, and it's kind of like you don't have much character going on in the high mids, so it's kind of your voice is like this. And that's a little bit odd sounding. So what you want to do is make sure you don't have as much of a treble boost, and you have a bit of a more natural treble and high mid response. So and the reverb, you want to make sure the reverb is not going to be resonating around here. So also filter your reverb, something like that. I don't know, or any kind of whole preset shouldn't really shimmer that much. So first of all, make sure the dry signal is not shimmering like that. And then make sure the reverb is also not shimmering as much in the high end. And also, you potentially want to reduce the amount of reverb because it's a bit much on the vocals and it really muddies them. If you don't lower the amount of reverb, you definitely need to cut the reverb around here. And also cut the vocal around here. Like first try to process the dry signal. So try to kind of control these low mids on the vocal and the shimmer. And if just processing the dry signal is not enough, also EQ the reverb a bit. So if you cut here, it's gonna feel more close. It's not gonna feel as far away if you cut there on the reverb. But it's going to be less muddy. So that's something. And also make sure it's not too shimmery on the reverb. Yes, the vocal is kind of resonant, especially on some notes. You definitely need to control this. And then so the violin ensemble, you can cut a bit at 3K, 2.5. It becomes more lush instantly. And then the solo strings. You check the violin ensemble here. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The solo strings feel a bit close, so if you can try to get more depth first with mic positions. If it doesn't work, try to put some early reflections. So try to get a reverb room just to add depth and then more whole reverb, just to put the solo instruments more in the mix because everything is really wet. At least the vocal is wet. So you kind of want the solo instruments to be kind of more in the background, wetter, kind of soaring, and not as, you know, upfront. So the cello seems to be resonating. The cello is a bit too resonating here, so try to maybe use dynamic EQ or multiband compression just to control some of these peaky kind of notes. It's just like it's just not too much, just a few dB. that's about it. It's really nice. Like you can keep a lot of reverb. It's just about controlling how you approach that reverb. And like the EQ of the vocal, of course. But the vocal can also... Yeah, I'm actually never mind. Yeah, that's about it. Right. Well, guys, that's all the tracks I have for now. So if you want to send one more track, just let me know in the chat right now. If you want me to review one more track, if anyone wants anything reviewed, this is the last chance because I've reviewed everything and it's already been almost 1 hour and a half. So I will probably maybe do a couple more if people want to. And if not, I will probably end it. So glad it helped. Yeah, I'm just gonna wait like maybe 2-3 minutes, see if anyone sends something, and then yeah, it's been already quite a long time, and I'm a little bit tired because I've been mixing all day. So my ears are already a little bit used. I don't want to give bad advice, so yeah. Nothing ready. That's fine. That's fine. Okay. I think that's probably going to be all, guys. I don't think I will get another one, but yeah. That's already a nice stream, almost 1 hour and a half, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Even if you didn't send anything, you know, I think you can get some value out of just watching like the critics on other tracks. So I hope that was useful to you. And yeah, guys, I will see you in the next stream, I guess. So again, every month, second Sunday of each month. So and it's always PM. So if you see that it's AM French time, it's my fault. It means I put AM instead of PM. I will try not to do this mistake again. Black Coyote, thank you for saying that. That's very nice of you. All right, guys. See ya.